All right, everybody, welcome back. Large man abroad, let's have a talk. I think it's time we call a spade and really talk about America in the most honest way we possibly can, which is this country is falling apart. This country kind of sucks. Let's be completely honest. It's nothing really great about this country anymore, except maybe the landmarks, right? Going to the parks, natural landscape, but actually live in this country is terrible. I mean, yeah, you have some nice days. It's beautiful outside, green grass, you have big houses, but most of them are trash. They're falling apart. The people inside of them are crazy. And just America in general makes you crazy. To be normal in America is to be a little bit insane. And people are leaving constantly now. I think in 2025 is the year that you really see a great exodus of people from the States. And I guess that would also beg the question, should Americans be welcome in other countries if they're leaving? Now, I will say the vast majority of people who are leaving the country now are people who didn't really intend for the country to go this way. So they're looking for some kind of escape. Because some people are just really happy, like pigs in shit. They're happy. But that's not me. And that's not pretty much everyone that I know. Everyone has a general level of discontentment in the way that things are being ran and the way that the country has gone. And there's no real light at the end of the tunnel for the vast majority of people. Things are getting more expensive. There's nothing real to do. The culture here doesn't really exist anymore. I mean, even if you look at our media, look at our movies and things like that, they're just rip-offs of things that were made 30, 40 years ago. There's no originality in Hollywood. There's no originality in storytelling because we don't have a story to tell. America, in the vast majority of the past 20 years, has been a bad actor in the world, on the global stage. And right now, we somehow, for some reason, have decided that the greatest strength that America could draw from is one of isolation. To set ourselves against, not apart, but against the rest of the world and have them come to our table and beg. And I feel like this is just a huge mistake. And you F around and you find out, right? You get what you deserve. And I feel like the chickens are coming home to roost is kind of what this feels like. And it's really got me going today because, I'm someone who likes to call myself a patriot, but I look around the country that I'm in right now and I'm not patriotic about this. This isn't anything to really write home about. This isn't anything great. You know what you do in your time off in America, really? I mean, unless you're on a vacation, you fly somewhere where there's no people. You know what you really do in America, for those who aren't from America? On your time off, you go and shop. You go and eat. These are the main things that you do in America. Right? Maybe you consume content. You watch movies. You get on Netflix. But where is our real culture? Because the idea of setting ourselves against the rest of the world says that we're going to become an isolated culture. But how can you become an isolated culture when you no longer have a culture? There's nothing for us to put forward to the world except our consumerism. And we're going to take that away because we're not going to be able to get any of the goods that we're used to getting. These tariffs are really going to cause a nightmare for the rest of people in America. Whether they voted for this or voted for that, it's going to hurt everybody. And, like I said, IQ exists on a bell curve, and a good population of people in this country, they're on the wrong side of it. And that's just the way that it is. And there's consequences of that, especially when that portion of the country has been weaponized by people in power to make sure that they stay in power. And the country's turned on itself. The country's falling apart. And because it's been dictated that this is the will of the people by a segment of the people, you get what you deserve. Maybe it's just time for America as we know it to go away. Maybe it's time for something else, because this ain't it. There's nothing great about this. This isn't America the great. This isn't America the wonderful. Waking up in the morning and just going to work, and that be your life, that be your day. No one's having families. No one's having cookouts. Everyone's just coming home playing video games. What kind of life is that to live? I mean, what does that say about your culture? What does that say about your people? Is this something that we should even fight for anymore? And I say no. I say let it fall apart at this point. Let America eventually just become a tourist destination where you can come in, see some monuments, see some national parks, and then just give up and let it just be what it is. Because, what other purpose is there? Mail guy just gave this to me. The only thing that works in this country seems to be the mail most of the time. This is the only part of government that actually seems to be functional. If it's even a part of government, honestly, I don't know. I think it is. But You just try to think what our great cultural exports are. I mean, what do we have? Nothing. And what are we taking with us when we move to another country? We're consumers, so we consume. Even when we go to live in another place, we have to completely deprogram ourselves from being Americans. And I think one of the most dangerous parts of that is once you've done that, it's impossible to come back. It's impossible to come back and swallow the same bullshit pill that's been shoved down your throat since you were a kid. It's impossible. Let it burn. Let it burn and let something else rise in its place, because this isn't working for anyone. I take that back. It's definitely working for some people, but not the American people. And the American people don't even know what they want anymore. They certainly don't know what they deserve, but they don't know what they want. This system is working for a few people. It's working for corporations. It's working for billionaires. It's working for those at the very pinnacle of wealth, the very pinnacle of ownership in this country. But for everyone else who's just squeaking by from paycheck to paycheck, why defend this anymore? But the worst part about this is it can get much worse. It can get. A lot of people say, well, Trump's in office. I mean, it can't get worse than this. Of course it can get worse than this. It can get much worse. And more than likely, it will get worse. Because the people are set against one another at this point by two parties that are essentially the same and very different at the same time. You don't know who to trust. And in this country, in America, you can't trust anybody. You can't trust those in power. You can't trust your local government. You can't trust corporations. You can't trust your job. What can you trust in this country? Nothing. So what's the point of keeping it how it is? Like I said, America is a country that we exist off of the addiction of nostalgia, right? We look back to the past and say, look at this is what America is, but that is not what America is now. What America now is just a parking lot in front of Walmart. That's what it is. It's just one big waiting area for people going in and out of stores. There's no real culture here. Even the people who came here 50 years ago, 100 years ago, their cultures have been monetized. They mean nothing. You're an Italian American. What does that mean? You have gangster movies and you have Olive Garden, pizzerias. You're Chinese American. Your family came here and built the railroads 150 years ago. And what do you have now? American Chinese food, your P.F. Chang's. That's the appreciation of your culture. The only way that we appreciate culture in America is by eating culture. And it's sad and it's disgusting, but it's reality. This is what America does. We eat, we consume. It's all we know. And like I said, we take that with us, and it takes a lot of deprogramming. So there's a great danger of an American exodus. There's a great danger of having large swaths of Americans showing up in other places, especially if they're bringing in a foreign income. And this isn't going to be news to anybody who's in Spain, who's in Portugal, who's in Greece, who's in the Philippines, who's in Thailand. This isn't going to be a surprise to anybody from those places, because what happens when you have large group of Americans or Westerners in general who show up there with their money is it destabilizes the entire economy. It pollutes the culture. It ruins everything in a way, because there's something about us that we want to move somewhere and keep our culture, our identity of hollow consumerism that essentially will turn anywhere that we go into a kind of Disneyland. We will rob and we will whitewash the culture of a native area away and replace it with food, because that's all we know. That's the only way that we know how to express culture, is with food. So should Americans be welcome in other countries? It's hard for me to really say this, because I'm someone who is going to leave America. I'm someone who I am deprogrammed from being American. It's hard for me to come back to this, and I do not want to be, culturally American anymore, because I see it for what it is, as most of the world does. And that's why I think it's important that people safeguard their nations and cultures from being destroyed by just the aggressive consumerism that large swaths of populations of Americans, can really do. Buying up properties and making the rental prices, just go through the roof and just price out, people from the countries that they're moving to. That's a big problem in so many places. And it's not something we see here in America, because we don't give a shit. We don't care. It doesn't affect us, because we're an individualist country. So if it doesn't affect us, it's not our problem. And that's really, I mean, part and parcel with the whole identity that we have now. But again, setting ourselves up against the rest of the world and saying, no, it's all about us here. You know, you got to come to our table, right? You got to come to the big dog. But the big dog has no teeth. He's old and he has diarrhea. Nobody gives a shit about this country anymore. Like I said, you want to go to Yosemite, you want to go to Yellowstone, you want to go to see the Statue of Liberty, you want to go see these great sites, but at the same time, if you come into the country, you could just might get nabbed up or turned away, because I mean, it's getting more and more difficult to actually come here now. And you know, as much as I want to say, come to America, come visit, because I'm one of the few people who actually loves this country while knowing what it is, because I have hope that somehow it can turn around, but it just doesn't seem to be a will there to actually get that kind of change. You know, there's plenty of people protesting, there's plenty of people who are voicing out their opinions, but at the same time, there's no action or teeth behind it. And anytime there is anyone who makes an actual stand against the powers that be so there can be change, they are swiftly taken down at the knees. Because this is a free country. You're free to express yourself as long as it's not actually threatening the power. Because once you do that, you're absolutely done. Get out of here. Let it fall. Let it fall. Let America fall to its own devices at this point, because what's the point of keeping it around anymore? What good does it do? I just watched this whole thing about food banks. I'm from the Beltway area in DC, right? This is where I'm from. I just saw this big special about the food banks there are going empty now. Food banks that feed hundreds of thousands of people who can't afford food, the poorest of us. Any country that claims to be the greatest country on the planet but can't take care of the weakest and most vulnerable people that they have in their country doesn't deserve to call themselves great. They just don't. It's a joke, and everyone knows it's a joke. The emperor has no clothes, and the rest of the world is laughing at us. And while you may sit back and say, well, let them laugh, there's no getting away from the fact that we are a global culture now. The world is one, right? I mean, yes, you have your superpowers, you have your different cultures, you have your different nations, you have your different populations, your different ethnicities, your different demographics, but at the same time, the way that the supply chain in the world works, the way that economics in the world works, the way that cultural movement in the world works is one that doesn't go with isolationism. We have a global flow now. That's the way that it is, and I think that that's a natural progression with a mix of technology and advancement that we have on the planet. And to turn away from that and to turn back towards ignorance is absolute folly. It's folly. If a nation can't see its own errors, and when you point it out, you're called a traitor, then that's not a nation worth saving. And honestly, at this point, what is there to say? I can't believe that we've turned our backs against all of our allies at this point. And for what? For tariffs, for commodities. We forgot about the great trade in philosophy, the great trade in culture that we've had, the things that we've gone through together over the past centuries to come into being and how we are now, not just as a nation, but as a globe. The strifes and hardships, the great victories and successes, the innovations. Such great things have brought us to be where we are today, but at the same time, we'll turn ourselves back and say, no, us. It's all about us. This amount of selfishness, this amount of solipsism, it almost shouldn't be allowed. It needs to be confronted, and in the end, that's what it's going to be. You can set America against the rest of the world, and you can look in YouTube videos and it says that America can win a war against the rest of the world, but what happens when America doesn't care about America anymore? What happens when America isn't willing to fight for America anymore? What happens when Americans realize that America isn't a country that they want to be a part of anymore? And what happens when they realize they have choice and that they can leave and that there's other options? And this is where the propaganda comes in, and it's so strong. It's so strong that anytime you challenge yourself and your own identity and your patriotism, again, you're labeled a traitor. Again, you're labeled a communist. Again, you're labeled a fascist. Any kind of descriptor can be thrown at you to shade you and sway you from speaking up. But I say, do not let it. Don't let it. This country is falling apart. And no amount of nostalgia, no amount of vacations, no amount of scrolling on Instagram, No amount of rage posting and trolling is going to fix that. This is the reality of the situation that we're in, and it's something that we're just going to be dealing with for a long time. So, my friends, that's all I have for you today. A little bit of an angry rant. We're on paternity leave, and I have nothing to do, and I've had the great opportunity to just take it all in, take in the world around me, this spectacular mess that we have in America as it's just swirling the drain, and it sucks. But here we are, witnessing it. And maybe there is something about witnessing the fall. My friends, thank you for stopping by. Thank you for the support. If you've been here to the end, like and subscribe. Tell me what you think. Tell me how much you hate me. Tell me how much you love me. I don't really give a shit. You guys, you have a good day.